theyeshiva.net.
Welcome everybody, Baruchim Abayim. We're up to Daf Yud Beis, column 2, in the middle of the page, Yud Beis, column 2. Around 10 or 15 lines from the top, the line starts with Svartim Lechem Gabi Chag HaShavuos in very small words, a small font. That's real. After the words V'Lechei Nikra B'Zoya Michla D'Meim Nusa, the next line starts with Svartim Lechem Gabi Chag HaShavuos. You see, it's a very small font. Daf Yud Beis, column 2. So this is a very, very deep maimer. It's a moich the Abba maimer. I know some of you were here at every shir, some of you were not. It's kedai to listen if you have time. Okay, it's kedai because it's a profound maimer, and each piece builds on the previous one. If you have a chance to listen and to review it, because this is not. This is deep stuff. And this maimer revolves around these two dynamics of Moichin the Abba and Moichin the Imma, Shabbos and Yom Tov, Simcha and Oineg, Nohar and Eden, Olam Haba and Atzmos, Chachma and Bina, Metzias and Bittel, Simcha Hana and Bittel of Hana, Bittel of Hasaga, a place of Maila and Mata, Ila and Olol, and a place where Maila and Mata are identical. And not only the darkness is like light, but the light is like darkness. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. I'm just repeating all the different terms that we use in the Maimer. If it's an inyan of Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu, or it's an inyan of ayin, if it's about the yesh, something, or ayin, which is the cessation of a thing in the absolute truth that's beyond the thing. Or, as we put it a little bit in different terminology and contemporary, it's the difference between the light of all the objects that emit light and black holes. So that's why on the yeshiva.net, the title for yesterday's class is Black Holes, Cats, and the Revolution of the Baal Shem Tov. I thought that was the best, most appropriate title. Black Holes, Cats, and the Revolution of the Baal Shem Tov. Because we spoke about cats too. About how much they understand. There's an expression in Yiddish, a cat's cooked of the Levana, right? Like a cat looks at the moon. Okay. And the Nekuda in all of it is that Yom Tov is always the day of simcha. V'titen lanu Hashem Elokeinu moyadim l'simcha. He has given us moyadim for simcha. Chagim uzmanim l'sasen. The objective of all holidays is joy. Rebbeinu Shalom wants people to be happy, to be joyous. That's the purpose of all the moyadim, simcha. Now simcha is not a pashut thing, because when you try very hard to be happy, it doesn't always work. Happiness is like almost a byproduct of life. You know, when somebody says, okay, now I'm going to be happy.
So he wants us all week not to be happy?
Huh? No, the opposite. Yom Tov is the climax of the whole avodah. Yeah. What's the greatest happiness? The greatest happiness is always you meet your best friend who you haven't seen in your whole life. You come back home. Or another example, you come back home to your most essential place. There's a full harmony between all aspects of yourself, between who you really are and who you think you are, between your reality and your true reality, your outer reality, your inner reality. So he says, on Yom Tov, every neshama ultimately has the opportunity. It's invited back home. Its father, its mother says, come, I want to be with you. I want to be one with you. I want you to be able to go out of being a weasel, a chulda who lives in the bottom of the homes, in the hiding place. And I want you to fully embrace your ultimate identity, your ultimate potential, your ideal self. That's the opportunity, the energy that exists every single Yom Tov, where every soul, every neshama is invited to travel up the ladder from Matzah, from where sometimes during the week we're enmeshed, we're entangled, we're stressed out. And Yom Tov is that opportunity of the Alul reuniting with the Ilah, as he puts it, or the child from captivity coming back to its Tati and Mami. V'tehi hasimcha g'dola ad ma'od. And there's a tremendous sense of joy, which means Yom Tov, just like Shabbos, Yom Tov is an opportunity. It's a very deep opportunity. And it should never be squandered, because these are unique moments in time that are designated for a soul to be able to really be one with itself. We often get distracted by the Kugel, and we don't realize the Yom Tov, right? We get distracted by the externalities, by the external stuff, and you don't realize the true inner opportunity that exists in a Yom Tov. How much of this do we feel, do we experience? That's every person according to his shir. But the knowledge of it, the awareness of it already changes the dynamics. That's always the first step. The knowledge, the awareness, the humility. When somebody knows how distant they are from something, they're already close to it. When somebody doesn't know how distant they are from something, they'll never be close to it, because they think they're there. When you know the distance, there's already perspective. There's already a relationship. When you don't know the distance, when everything is one big cholent, then there's no real connection, because it's just hallucination. That's why the awareness, the understanding of this, the Alter Rebbe had Mesiras Nefesh to be able to explain Teres Baal Shem Tov. Why? Because without it, it's just one Greiser Cholent, Madreges and Yeshuas and Moivsim and Nissim and Kugel and Chaluptzas and wealth and money and Kavod and Madreges and God and me and ego and Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov, Mashiach, mit Galus. Klippis, mit Svidis, mit Eilemis, mit Atzilus, mit Kesses, a Gates, a Flitz, a Hakt. Okay, yeah. And a person can easily deceive themselves. A person could live in that web and you deceive yourself. When one actually learns a lot about this, you could feel on one hand distant from it. But on the other hand, that itself creates a closeness. Because the person can appreciate, closeness always comes from understanding the truth. The moment already I understand the truth, there's already a closeness, there's already a relationship. And then within that, of course, there's deeper and deeper growth. So all of simcha is connected. The simcha of Yom Tov is connected to this type of ability for deep, deep connection. That wherever the soul and the body were throughout the whole year and the whole week, Yom Tov is that invitation and that empowerment and that embrace to be completely united with one's source. Each neshama, each soul, which means in a practical way, it means that the person can ultimately align themselves with their ultimate core and have a true dveikus, true intimacy with their deepest self, which means with Hashem, with God. And whenever we're in that place, obviously our relationships around the table with our families, with our children, with our grandchildren, with our spouses are always in a different place. Because whenever, I should say this, it's maybe obvious, but maybe it's not obvious. And that is, the moment you operate from a place of oneness with yourself, your relationship with everybody around you is completely different. Because you're there fully. And whenever you're there fully, other people can also be there fully. When I'm with my children and I'm half distracted and I'm not real, it's not authentic. And a lot of my responses are just based on guilt and my own pressure and my obligation to educate them so that at least they're not a disappointment the way I was a disappointment to whoever the person we're dealing with is, then there's something very flawed in the relationship. It's broken. It's fragmented. But when the person is completely one, when all your pieces are one, when your puzzle comes together, when you're aligned, then your relationship is one from full presence, full awareness, and never from a place of brokenness and anger and guilt and frustration and annoyance and trying to shortcuts and short-circuit everything. It's from a place of wholeness, integration, a holistic relationship, an ability to be able to understand that God is here right now. As I said last week, God will never be found in expectations. He will always be found in reality. Yet so many of us feel that they only find God in expectations. If only my house would look like this, and only my Seder looks like this, there I'll find God. But God doesn't exist in expectations, because expectations are not reality. They're my fantasies. God always exists in reality, here, now. Who I am, where I am. I could find that Nekuda. And Yom Tov, it's emphasized where the Alul could find that Ilah and embrace itself fully, which means embrace its Dveikus fully, embrace Hashem fully, and therefore embrace your reality fully, because that's where you find the truth, that's where you find the meaning, and the first reality you embrace is the reality of your environment, the closest people to you. But Shabbos and Yom Tov are not two divorced realities. Even though we spoke here two completely different realities, they're never completely different. Because Chachma and Bina are treinei in the Lamis Parsha. Two inseparable friends. Inseparable friends means that Bina always has to feed off Chachma. Real Moichin De'im, as he puts it, is never about the Tainug and the Hana from a Dover Nifred, from the separation. Those are distractions. The Hana of Bina, the simcha of Bina that we keep on speaking about, the simcha of Yom Tov, which is very different than Shabbos. Shabbos is the sound of silence. Shabbos is bekushi yitiru l'daber b'Shabbos. Bekushi yitiru l'daber. Because what Shabbos, to do justice to Shabbos, is only through silence. The real avodah of Shabbos is silence. The words on Shabbos are a distraction to Shabbos. The closest thing you can get to silence is singing. But generally, the avodah of Shabbos, he explains, is shtik, is silence. And you see it also in Malacha. The biggest focus in Hilchos Shabbos is what you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Right? With details and details and details. If you ever learn Masechta Shabbos or Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Shabbos well, it's pretty daunting. The shvusim with the gezeiros, you may come to do this. There's the Lamatas Malachas Min HaTorah, but each of the Malacha has many, many tuldas, and each of the tuldas has so many different rabbinic dimensions to it. The most famous ones would, of course, be concepts like Matzah, which are basically rabbinic, but they define Hilchos Shabbos in such minute detail. You know, and somebody once asked me, I said, God really cares about these, like, if I move a hammer, and you're an intelligent person. He says, you're an intelligent person. You think he really cares about this?
This is one of the biggest challenges. Even for the greatest scientist, Albert Einstein could not relate to the childlike God.
Right. Right.
Every minute detail.
Right. So black holes, they're very excited about, because the diameter of the black hole is 25 billion miles. Das ist gerät, right? And it's 55 million light years away. But the truth, of course, is that legabe infinity, 25 billion miles and 2 centimeters. It's the selbe Zach. If two, exactly. That's the cat and my teacher, yeah, and me, yeah. 2 centimeters is not any smaller than 25 billion miles or 55 million light years away. In other words, for infinity, both are equally insignificant. And if one is significant because he chose it, the other one may be equally significant, a more powerful significant. So the shear of a revius, which according to Rabbi Chaim is 3 ounces, right? And you have to drink, the Gemara says that you have to drink Ruboy de Kois on Pesach, which Tosfos means you have to drink most of a revius, or the Rishonim, the Ramban says you have to drink most of the cup, or all of the cup, is of equal concern. But you see that the whole focus of Shabbos is not to do this and not to do that and not to do that. Now, in life, it becomes a challenge when all of Shabbos is what you're not allowed to do, right? Because if it's only negative and not positive, It's not exciting. It's not something people want to gravitate to. But the oimika inyan is that that's really what defines Shabbos. What defines Shabbos is the absence, the silence of the ego, the silence of any expression of egotism, even in its highest sense. That's the keli. That's the avodah of Shabbos. The avodah of Shabbos is the absence, standing in absence, in a state of bittul hasaga. On Yom Tov, you see there's one malacha that's mutter. In Parshas Boy, it says by Pesach, right? Achkol asher ye'asa l'chol nefesh, kol asher ye'achel l'chol nefesh, hu levada ye'asa l'chem. It's called beleches eichel nefesh. A malacha for eating, you're allowed to do on Shabbos. And min ha-Torah, at least according to most poskim, you're allowed to do everything that entails preparation for food. Anything. Even though the Chachamim said things you could do before you shouldn't. For example, harvesting grain. Harvesting grain, you could do Erev Yom Tov. You don't have to harvest grain on Yom Tov. So things that you don't do Erev Yom Tov, so according to many poskim, is asur. Some of them only midin abon. Nice, even that you can do. There's a debate about it in Masechta Beitza. But what's the point? The point is, when it comes certainly cooking, we cook on Yom Tov. What's the idea of Eichel Nefesh? Eichel Nefesh is that which you could digest, that which you're going to enjoy. Eichel is a source of hana. What is Eichel Nefesh spiritually? Food for the soul. Food for the soul you make on Yom Tov, not Shabbos. Shabbos loy niten loy hanas boy. So it's quite funny because, I don't know, funny, interesting. Most people, when they describe Shabbos, it's all about hana and hana and hana and more food and tayameh and more challah and more kugel and more herring and more spear ribs and more liver and more tzishmeta te'eyer and more mayonnaise and more sugar. And for carrot, they look at it, they say l'shem Shabbos Kodesh and Gan Eden and l'shem Yichud and Tainug, and this is Gan Eden, Gan Eden and Gan Eden. Yeah. Huh? But the Rebbe says here one word on Shabbos, he says, Loi nitin lehonas boy. Because that's really the ultimate einig. That's the ultimate einig is Loi nitin lehonas boy. That's the ultimate einig. The silence, the bittul hasaga, which is deeper than Olam Haba. Olam Haba is lahan chiloya v'yesh. Loi nitin lehonas boy. So some of us think, but who could relate to this? The answer is just by learning about it already you relate to it. Because the neshama is very deep. The neshama knows this instinctively. The neshama is connected to Meichin the Abba, the neshama is connected to Meichin the Imma. You're learning about it is already a connection. Every person experiences it in their way, according to their share, according to their middah. This is not... you always have to be honest with yourself. It's extremely important to be honest with yourself. But the knowledge about it already changes a person's paradigm. You know, when you look up and you see the infinity of the universe, you're already a different person, even if you're not there. So but the kavanah is not that Shabbos and Yom Tov are disconnected. Yom Tov is Mikra Kodesh. What's Mikra Kodesh? It's the calling of holiness. Shabbos is Kodesh. It's called the Shmartim es HaShabbos ki Kodesh He Kodesh. Yom Tov is a Mikra Kodesh. So you call out to Kodesh, like you call your friend by his name. Do you have your friend? Do you have your whole friend? We have his name. And the name is a gilui of your friend, what he calls Nehida Abba, or the Ha'ara of Abba, a ray of Abba. And every Yom Tov introduces a ray of Moichin the Abba into Moichin the Imma. Usually it's through the davening, through the Musaf, through Halal. Pesach, he says, especially through Matzah. Because what is Matzah? Matzah is Michla de Mehemnus, the bread of faith. What does it mean, bread of faith? We explained there's a munah that's lower than das, and there's a munah that's higher than das. And the two should never be confused. A munah that's lower than das is a munah that you call blind. You don't think, so you believe. I don't want to think. And here's the rule in life. The rule in life is that whenever I can understand something, but instead of understanding, I just say, I believe, that's not what real amunah is. You could call it intellectual laziness. The true function of amunah is beyond das, not below das. It's not here in order to tell a person, don't use your mind, don't use your brain, you have a fahakta brain anyway, just shut it out. Shut it down, destroy it if you can. Chalila. The Emunah is not here to replace das, to replace seichel. Seichel is a gift of God. The whole Gemara you learn, it's all you use your mind. All of the Chachamim, all of the Chazal, the way they understood Torah was through their mind. Great minds, sometimes godly minds, but minds. That's why there's machlokes and there's debates. If they wouldn't be using their mind, there wouldn't be debates. Halacha l'Moshe Messina, there's no debate usually, according to the Rambam at least. So, the mind is a sacred thing, it's a divine gift. Never ever put down a mind, never underestimate the value of a mind, and never feel that to be Jewish you have to minimize your mind. On the contrary, you want to flex its muscles ad infinitum and seize its gift, seize its value. Ki hi chachmaschem ubinaschem le'enei kol ha'amim. The Yesod of Emunah is al derech, the concept of moichin the Abba, that's deeper than moichin the Imma. Why is that represented by Matzah? Because the child begins to say, Father, when he eats grain, the Gemara says in Brachas Daf Mem, that's a physical child with a physical, biological father. There's something about the grain, the oatmeal, the kasha, the farino, the challah, the bread, that the baby starts eating at a young age, that develops or demonstrates or is connected to some form of conscious development where I could say the word Abba. In that word Abba, you have everything. My father, my mother. Can the baby explain it in an ordinary fashion? No. But it's all there in Abba. That's called katnos, as he puts it, it's called katnos Abba. Meaning, that connection that is extremely profound could be somehow articulated and expressed in words. By Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Jewish people were told to eat matzah. Matzah is the tam dug and the tam of grain, but not regular chametz. Matzah represents, as he says, bittul. It's not inflated. It doesn't ferment. It's not leaven. So just like the child says Abba, and it's not processed through das. He doesn't know, he can't explain it. What does it mean, Father? Why do you say Tati? Maybe this one is Tati. What does Tati mean? What does Tati represent? What does Tati do? How did he become your Tati? I can't, the child can't do that. But nonetheless, the connection is there, and it's a very, very deep connection. This represents something that is l'mayla min hadaz, the way it's accessed in a child's world, through the word Abba. So that relationship is one that's deeper than an organized intellectual structure. And it comes out just in that word Abba through the Dagan. And that's what the Matzah introduced by Yetzias Mitzrayim into the Jewish people. And that's what introduces every year that Michla de Mehemnosa. That's the Mikra Kodesh of Pesach, where it accesses what we call moichin, the Abba, and it's something that's eaten. It's digested. But that's the real reason why the Gemara says in Pesachim, Bala morer lo yotza, Bala matzah yotza. If you swallow matzah, you were yotza. If you swallowed morer, you weren't yotza. Why? Because morer, you have to feel the tam. Matzah, you don't have to feel the tam. What's the difference? That's the difference of moichin the Abba, moichin the Imma. Matzah, you don't have to feel the tam. That's not about the feeling of the taste and the flavor. Tam also means the reason. Bala matzah, you swallowed matzah, you were yotz.
Isn't it mikra kodesh? Mikra means you have Shabbos.
Yeah, that's Yom Tov. That's why Yom Tov is called mikra kodesh. And Yom Tov is simcha, you're right. So that's why there's a certain component. Yeah. But that moichin da Imma is not to be divorced from moichin da Abba, with the hanos from something separate. You say, leis machshavet fisabeh. But that gufa, yeah, is accessed in the world of Hana as much as a person can access that within Metzias. As much as a person can access that within Metzias. The tainug of Yom Tov is not a tainug from Adav and Nifrit, from separation. That's always distractions. The greatest tainug of Yom Tov is when it's connected to Shabbos, when it's Mikra Kodesh. It's a calling of Shabbos. It's like calling the name of somebody.
What's the parallel? At the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, they tasted dump and went straight to the Abba.
Abba, they could say.
Where was the Mokli? What's the parallel? When the Jews were in Mitzrayim? balance.
Okay, we'll soon see. We'll soon see. V'hine hamshachas meichin the Abba b'matzah ein ela b'layla harishon. The meichin the Abba, my father, which came into the matzah, ein ela b'layla harishon. It's on the first night. Avu misham ve'elech. From there and further, Hagam diksiv matzas yei ochel as shivas hayamim upirish. Shetzorich lahachil as kol zayin hayamim shiyunis zayin ubchinas Abba. The pasuk says in Parshas Bo, it's a very interesting expression. Those who say the 4 parshas in the morning, Kadosh Vayikra V'Yachal, so you say it every day. The end of Parshas Bo. Shivas yamim teichel matzos, uvayom hashvi chag l'Hashem. You should eat 7. Moshe is telling the Jewish people for all generations. Matzos yei ochel eis shivas hayamim. So unique expression in Chumash. Shivas yamim teichel matzos is direct. 7 days you should eat matzos. Uvayom hashvi, on Shvi shel Pesach is a Yom Tov. Matzos yei ochel eis shivas hayamim. Matzahs yei ochel es shivas hayamim. Matzahs should be eaten. So we say matzahs should be eaten for the 7 days. It doesn't say eat matzah, you should eat matzah. Matzahs should be eaten in the 7 days. And it doesn't say matzahs yei ochel b'shivas yamim. Shivas yamim yei ochel matzahs. Matzahs yei ochel es shivas hayamim. So the Balatanya teaches you have to take matzah and you have to feed the 7 days with matzah. Matzahs yei ochel es shivas hayamim. Not only you should eat matzah 7 days, he's saying something deeper. The 7 days have to be fed by matzah, not matzahs yei ochel b'shivas yamim. Ei shivas hayamim, the 7 days have to be fed by matzah. Why? 7 days represent the 7 middas. The 7 middas, which are chesed, gvur, tiferes, netzach, chod, yesod, malchus. Middas is always the child of the mother. Children are born from a mother, not from a father. The father makes an important contribution, but the mother gives birth. Eim habonim smecha, and that's where simcha comes from. Because middas, the 7 middas represent personal relevance. Without moichin de'imah, there's no personal relevance. Without something relating to me, there's no emotion. All emotion, what does middas represent? An idea becoming relevant. It becomes my value. It becomes important to me. I feel this is the right thing for me. In Midas itself, they could be more abstract, more tangible, but all of Midas is the translation of ideas into personal relevance. It becomes a value. When you say, I feel this is the right thing, that's called a midah. That's a value. That happens when you appreciate something, an element of moichin de'imah. Yes. Matzahs yei ochel eis shivas hayamim. The 7 days, the 7 middas have to be fed with matzah. The 7 days themselves have to be fed. Not just you should eat matzah for 7 days. In other words, all of Bina and Midas always have to be fed by the bittul of Moichin the Abba. The bittul of Shabbos. The bittul of Asaga. Don't think that in the world of Bina, in the world of Simcha, in the world of Midas, you divorce it from Shabbos. The ultimate truth is that the ultimate truth of Chachma, the ultimate truth of Bittul, must inform and enlighten and inspire the human condition. Yiddishkeit doesn't operate on 2 distinct levels of consciousness. There's the place of Moichin the Abba, there's the place of Moichin the Imma, and the 2 don't meet. No. The concept is, Leis machshava tfisa bei Moichin the Abba, there's no machshava could be teufus. And the moment there's machshava, it's already not it. And the moment there's Ohr, it's already not it. Because Ohr and Choshech are identical. But then the objective is that there should be a concept of Mikra Kodesh, Matzah, Hatinik, Ein Hatinik Yedei Likris Abba, that in the world of the Tinik, in the world of the child, there should be something that's L'mayla min Hadas, which is the Abba when he says Abba, which is a relationship that's beyond Das. and yet he experiences it on some level. As he says the word Abba, that's what matzah is. So that's the connection between moichin the Abba of matzah, the Abba, into the person's system, into the person's life. So the moichin the Abba itself is balayla harish. When is the chiyuv tit matzah? The first night. Aval misham ve'elech hagam diksiv matzah yachal es shibas hayamim upidish shetzarich lahachil es kol zayin hayamim shiyu nezayin b'chinas Abba. You have to feed all the 7 days. They should be nourished from Abba. The tainug of a person, the hana of a person, the simcha of a person should come from the bittul. That's where the simcha comes from. The real simcha comes from bittul. That a person can appreciate that, even though you'll say, when in real bittul there's no simcha. That's true. That's why Shabbos is not simcha, Shabbos is oinig. But then there's the nekuda of Yom Tov, that from the bittul comes simcha, not from anything else. Simcha doesn't come from a distraction of the bittul. It comes gufer from that bittul, from that oneness. Ukanoidim is svira, like we see in the svira soim, shebeshavua harishon, heim zayin moichin da Abba. The first week of Sfira Sa'imer is connected to the 7 dimensions of Moichin da Abba. What do we mean? Shemoyach ha-chachma nimshach b'chol zayin amidus. That the chachma, the brain, the element of chachma, is communicated in all 7 midas. That's matzah ye ochel es shivas hayama. But hinei Pesach Mitzrayim einen noyeg Yisur HaChametz ala yom echad bilvat. The first time around, the Isur Chametz was only 1 day. As the Gemara says in Pesachim Tzadik Vav, he said in the beginning of the Maimer, that the first Pesach was only 1 day. The Gemara learns it out from the Pasuk. Lo ye'achal chametz hayoim atam yotzim lo ye'achal chametz hayoim. Only 1 day was an Isur Chametz. The rest of the days, theoretically, you can eat chametz, which is fascinating. You're telling us in Parshas Boy right after Yitzias Mitzrayim, no chametz for 7 days. Lo yirah lecha chametz, matzah yachal l'shivas hayamim, lo yirah lecha chametz, lo yirah lecha sar b'chol gvulecha. But the first time around, there was no issue. 1 day and that's it. Lama nigara, as they said, lama nigara. It's not fair. Usually, we're commemorating what happened the first time. This didn't even happen the first time. So there's something very strange here. The first time around, the Isser is 1 day. First day of Pesach, chametz was also. That's it. The night of Pesach and the day of Pesach. The day they left Mitzrayim. The next day, they can eat chametz. The next day, they can eat chametz. The whole Pesach that we have, they didn't have. Now we'll understand something strange here, which connects to his first question in the Maimer. When we say matzah zu shanu oichlem ashuma by the Seder, you're going to pick up your matzah and you're going to say matzah zu shanu oichlem. This matzah that we're eating, why are we eating it? Al shum shalei hispik b'tzeka shlavasena lachmas. Because our forefathers didn't have time to let the dough ferment and rise. They had to hack it in the oven swiftly because they were being expelled from Egypt. The Egyptians were telling them, Arois, get out. In Yiddish probably, Arois, Arois. So b'meila, they didn't have time. So you took the dough, you made it, you kneaded the dough, you put it in the oven, yalla, megate. En zman, chaval al zman. No time, right? That's why we're eating matzah. Ask the Balatanya, what do you mean? That's not why we're eating matzah. Let's say that wouldn't have happened. Let's say they did give them time. Let's say they gave them a week, a month. We still would have to eat matzah. There was a mitzvah to eat matzah the night of Pesach, Be'erev Teichel Matzahs. They themselves ate matzah the night before. Together with the Korban Pesach, they ate matzah, mar, and Pesach. Even if that wouldn't have happened. The question is deeper. Let's say the Egyptians would not rush them. How could they bake chametz? There was an Isser Chametz the first day of Pesach. The day that they left Mitzrayim, they couldn't bake chametz because they weren't allowed to have chametz the first day, so they would anyway have to eat matzah. Let's say the Egyptians would say you have all the time in the world. We said that the Isser Chametz went for 1 day, the first day of Pesach. So there's something off here. So the pshat is what he said right in the beginning of the Maimah, right in the beginning before he got into the whole Hesber, and now he comes back to it. The pshat is that guf is the vart. The Easter was only 1 day. So the second day Pesach, they would have eaten chametz. the third day Pesach, they would have eaten chametz. But because the Egyptians chased them out, so the only thing they could take out of Mitzrayim was matzah. So now day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they were eating matzah by default. The mitzvah was taka the first day. But Pasha, the second day they could have eaten. Already Motzai, the first day they could have had a pizza party.
How they could have done it? Because if they would keep the walk unattended, it would become chametz automatic.
Yeah, that's the vart. In other words, if the Egyptians wouldn't chase them already for the night of after Tesvav, they can already eat chametz. Because lo hispik b'tzekel shlavasenu lahachmetz. So therefore, when they left, they only left with matzah. And because they only left with matzah, so therefore, what did they eat day 2? What did they eat day 3 in the desert? Before the man came. Later the man came down. But before the manna came down, right? After Pesach. The man came down only in the middle of Iyar. But till then, they were eating their food. Which food did they have? They couldn't have chametz. Why? Because they baked all this matzah. Just like we bake our matzah before and we keep it. And matzah doesn't get. Matzah is a good food for the Sinai desert. Yeah. That's why, that's the That's why night 2 and night 3 and day 4 they had chametz. They didn't have chametz, they had matzah.
For 7 days they ate only matzah.
They didn't have chametz. For 7 days they ate matzah, but not because they were commanded. Because lo hispik. So what happens by us? So Hashem says, ooh, the first day, Taka, they didn't eat chametz because they weren't allowed to. The second day they didn't eat chametz because they didn't have. Lo hispik. By us, all the 7 days is because we're not allowed to. What does this mean?
What did they bake matzahs? The night of Pesach? They didn't have time.
They had to bake matzah Erev Pesach at some point, or the night of Pesach.
And the rest for the rest week of...
But then it says that when they wanted to prepare food for departure, right?
They baked it right there before they departed?
Yeah, obviously.
So then what's the way?
When they got to the first location, they got sticks and ovens, but there wasn't there was a revelation of Melech Malach and Lachim, so they couldn't rise.
It says lo yachlu lehismameya. They couldn't procrastinate. Kegershim Mitzrayim, right?
They baked it right there.
Yeah. Exactly what hour? I don't know.
Have a tanur with them, or portable.
No, it says clearly they were expelled from Egypt. If they were baking it in the desert, then they could bake chametz. Nobody's expelling them. The point is they were doing it in Mitzrayim where they had the ovens. Where they have ovens in the desert?
Didn't they bring seor with themselves? Didn't they go out with seor, but not with bread? Didn't they have the predicate for bread, seor? Sourdough. No, that's what I'm saying. It's not bread. Doesn't Rashi say that? Doesn't he address the fact that they went out with seor?
Or maybe it was
Didn't I ask you about that in my
baked
book a couple of weeks ago?
I don't know. I don't remember.
But the fact is that they didn't have seor as not as bread, but seor as...
Could be. Yeah, for later you're saying. That they used later. Could be. The point we're making is the Haggadah says, I'm not saying big chidushim, you say it every year in the Haggadah. Like hispik b'tzekesh l'v'sein l'achmetz, ad shenigla melech malcham lachem baruch hu golem shenemar, v'yoifu es habotzik, right? Kegershim Mitzrayim, v'gam lo yachlu l'smameya, v'gam tzeder lo yasu lehem. They had to bake and run. So they took out matzah. Let's understand the hezbollah though. So he says as Pesach Mitzrayim eini noyeg isur achametz el yom echad bilvat. In Pesach Mitzrayim, the isur applied for 1 day. Why? Lefi, there was one component that they had. Shahoyu Moshe v'Aaron. They had there with them Moshe and Aaron. Shem Shneim Mepchinas Abba. Moshe and Aaron, both of them were Abba, meaning they lived in a state of Abba, which is Chachma. Moshe says about him and Aaron a few times in Chumash, V'nachnu mo. V'nachnu mo. What are we? What's Pshat V'nachnu mo? What are we? Literally, it means, what are we? What do you think? We're trying to control you? V'nachnu ma. V'Aaron mahu kisalinu alav. Again, Aaron mahu. V'nachnu ma. A few to 3 times. Al pipnimi is v'nachnu ma. Chachma is koyach ma. Chav ches mem hey, koyach ma. It's the koyach of what? To ask what? It's also the concept of ma. Ma represents wonder. It's not an answer, it's a question. Ma, what? Chacham mahu oimer. What's ma? Ma is what? It's the wonder. It's a koyach that you say on this koyach, ma, what is it? It's never concrete. It's never tangible. It's the intangible. It's the inquisitive and the curiosity to that which is beyond me, which allows for the epiphany. Koyach is not something that, koyach ma is not something that you could concretize. It's the koyach on which you always say ma. So b'meila, Moshe and Aaron represent ma. When we say the matzah, matzah zeh she'anu oichlim al shum ma is not only a question, it's also an answer. Matzah zeh she'anu oichlim, this matzah that we eat, al shum ma. It's because of ma. It's for chachma, moichin da Abba. Matzah zu she'anu oichlim is not al shum ma, why? Al shum ma, it's because of ma. Ma is 45, it's Begematria Adam, it's Koyach Ma, it's Chachma, it's the first formulation of Yudke Vavke in full letters creates 45. So you had Moshe and Aaron there. Shem Shnei Mebchines Abba. V'lo yomish amud ha'anon anona da'aron da'hainu b'chines makifei Abba. The Pasuk says that the amud ha'anon, the cloud, the pillar of cloud never departed from them. And the cloud surrounded them. Chazal say the cloud surrounded them from all sides, 7 sides. All 4 sides, top, bottom, and in front of them. And this was Anona Aaron. It's known as the cloud of Aaron. The Zohar puts it as the cloud of Aaron. The Gemara says it came b'schus Aaron, Ananei HaKavod. It's called Anona Aaron. Ki ayin, the Pasuk says that ayin ba'ayin, atonira aleim, you appear to them with this cloud. Nira is also Oisius Aaron. Nira is Oisius Aaron. Tanana Aaron, the Hainu B'chines Makifei Abba, which represents what's called the Makif of Abba, like the clouds which surrounded them. The cloud, it said, killed the snakes and scorpions in the midbar. So literally it means to let them travel. You have snakes and scorpions, it's very dangerous. The clouds got rid of them, so it blazed, it created a path. It trailblazed a path for the Jews to travel. On a deeper level, it means the makif of Aaron, the makif of Chachma, the Chachma which encompassed them, it destroyed. Makif is mesami, it blinds the eyes of the Chitzaynim shelo yeh lehem yenika, meaning they shouldn't be, the external forces shouldn't be able to nurture and therefore harm a person. So the moich the Abba, the Matzah, the first night of Pesach sufficed because you had Moshe and Aaron who represented moich the Abba. And whenever there's moich the Abba, there's never a concern of egotism, of a yenika of the ego, because it remains always focused on the nekuda of bittul. Yeshes always begins in Moichin the Ima, when it's divorced from Moichin the Abba. Even though Moichin the Ima is godly, but it's already the godliness the way I get it, I understand it. And the moment it translates into the concretization of the first Yesh, even the highest Yesh. Ultimately, over there, light and darkness, even if they're so far away, are not so far away. Because from the highest Metzias will ultimately come the lowest Metzias, when Metzias is not connected to that which is beyond Metzias. So whenever there is Moichin the Abba in revelation and manifestation, there's never a Yenikah, there's never distortions. When a person is aligned with Moichin the Abba, and Moichin the Ima is feeding off it, there's no distortions, there's no crookedness. When Moichin the Abba is divorced and Metzias takes over, even if it starts as a spiritual experience, ultimately it could end up in hedonism because you're not attuned with the truth that's deeper than I. So even the highest levels of Moichin the Ima can ultimately produce a Yenikah. What's a Yenikah? A Yenikah is the Chitzonim, the external forces could nurture from it. That's why sometimes the most spiritual people can fall into the lowest places, because their Moichin the Ima is divorced from their Moichin the Abba. And it's completely not a contradiction. Because they're only ready to grasp God through mitzias, not through not mitzias. The leis machshava tfisa bei, no. My machshava is going to be typhus. The moment my machshava is typhus, even if it's all around spirituality, but it's ultimately the ego comes into play. Very spiritual, very high, very lofty. But ultimately, the worm has crept in. And once the worm has crept in, it can translate into many, can manifest itself and already go through a transition. But there's that worm that crept in. What is chametz? Chametz is egotism. Chametz is the exact opposite of matzah. Exact opposite of matzah. Matzah is a gilui of moichin, the Abba of bittul. Matzah is flat. Matzah is non-inflated. Matzah is tasteless. Matzah is the grain, is the food that the child eats, that the Jew eats as a child, that allows him to experience Abba. What type of Abba? The Abba that's beyond das, the Abba of Emunah, the Abba of the child. That Abba you experience. That's matzah. Chametz is the exact opposite. The first time Pesach around, they had Moshe and Aaron. With Moshe and Aaron, the Isser Chametz could be the first night, the first day, and a mitzvah of matzah. Aval Adoides, Zayin Yamim Teichlu Matzahs. For generations, there's a mitzvah. The mitzvah is 7 days you got to eat matzah. They didn't have that mitzvah. Fascinating. It says, matzahs yachal shivas yamim, comes the Gemara and says, it says sheishas yamim teichel matzahs. Then it says shivas yamim. So what does the Gemara say? Kol davar shoy b'chlal v'yotzim and aklal alamad atzmu yotzim lamad al kula yotzim. Just like the 7th day is not an obligation, because it says eat matzah 6 days, the 6 days are also not an obligation. The main obligation is if you want to eat bread on Pesach, it can't be chametz. You don't have to eat matzah, besides the first night. In other words, what's the mitzvah? Not to eat matzah. The mitzvah is not to eat chametz. Because a Jew has to eat. So Mele, you say, if you want to eat bread, you got to eat matzah. But there's no mitzvah to eat matzah the other days of Pesach. There's a mitzvah to eat matzah the first night of Pesach. So you have an interesting thing. The Torah says eat matzah 7 days, but he says the main thing is it shouldn't be chametz. Why? Because that's the word, that there shouldn't be a yenika. There shouldn't be, the chitzonim there shouldn't be chametz the other days of Pesach. In other words, there shouldn't be the separation between Moichin Abba and Moichin Dima. Aval matzah Moichin Abba, dai b'layla arishin, be'erev teichel matzah shekavay achasuv chayva. Ki yoimam yitzava Hashem chazdoi. Pasuk says in Tehillim, by day God commands His kindness. So the Zohar says it should have said, Yoim yitzava Hashem chazdoi. What's yoimam? Yoime the azilim kula yoimin. There's the day that goes with all the days, which is Anana, the Aaron, the cloud of Aaron, the Ksiv beinami la yamash amud ha'anan yoimam shekoilel kol ha'yamim v'hainu yoim rishon bilvat shel chesed. Aaron represented Midas HaChesed and Chesed. Azil, it says, Azilim Kula Yoimin. It goes with all the days. Sunday impacts all the days of the week. Chesed is ultimately the source of all the Midas. All the Midas are about attachment, about love, about connection. Even Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yisod, Malchus are all based on Chesed. So Yoimim Yitzava Hashem Chazdai. That's the concept of Aaron. Yoimim the Azilim Kula Yoimin. That's Anana the Aaron. So he says, the main thing is what happens the first day. The first day is the hamshachas of Abba into Chesed. That's the first day of Pesach. Once that happens, that's the Iker Moiched Abba. Now you have to make sure the other days you don't eat chametz. They don't become disconnected. That's the main thing. But the matzah is the first night. That's when it happens. The next days, the main thing is eat matzah, but not so much to eat matzah, not to eat chametz. The first year around, they didn't have to. They didn't have to have a prohibition. But did they eat chametz the first year around? No. Why didn't they eat chametz? Lo hispik. They didn't need a mitzvah. Sie nicht ausgekommen. The Kotzker Rebbe said, I don't want my chassidim shouldn't sin because they don't want to sin. I want they shouldn't sin, soll nicht haben kein Zeitsündige. I want they shouldn't sin, they shouldn't have time to sin. What did he mean? They shouldn't have time. Like hispik b'tzekas over saying, where do you have time for yeshus? You have Moshe and Aaron, you have Moichin Dab, but where do you have an opportunity for yeshus? You didn't have to have a mitzvah. A mitzvah means that you have to be commanded. If you're not commanded, it's not shaykh. You may not do it. You have in halacha, the mitzvah of having children is a mitzvah on men, not on women. The mitzvah to have children, pru or vu, is a mitzvah on a man. The Gemara says, Ein ha'isha mitzvah al pirya v'rivya. A woman is not commanded to have children. No, you think this makes sense? A man is commanded to have children. A woman is not commanded to have children. So I once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he said like this. He said, mitzvah means it's something you have to be commanded. That by a mother, by a woman, children, it's who she is. She doesn't have to be commanded. The relationship between a mother and children is so deep. It's who she is. Her system, from a very young age, is designed every single month to have a child. The yearning for children, the desire for children is innate. It's not beged a mitzvah. Not because she doesn't have a mitzvah, because it's deeper than a mitzvah. I don't command you to breathe, right? This is who I am. I know there are exceptions, especially when there's a lot of other challenges. But generally, the feminine relationship with a child is different. Men, they can go into the cave. The word rechem, which is a womb, comes from the word rachum, compassion. The Maral says rechem comes from the word rachem. The womb, the woman carries, and even when she doesn't, the cycle of blood every month is because the womb is destined to carry, and when it dissolves, because there's no child, it creates the cycle of blood. In other words, biologically, she is connected to a child, to a new generation. Men, God says, you gotta have children. Come out of your cave, stop texting, and have children. Because organically, they don't necessarily feel it, and they could run away, where, men are different. So the gather of a mitzvah means you're detached, so I have to command you. That's pshat. Mitzvahs p'telis la'asid lover. It says mitzvahs will be batal la'asid lover. What says Torah won't be changed. It won't be a gather of a mitzvah. This is who you are. It's not a gather of a mitzvah. The first year of Yetzias Mitzrayim, there was no mitzvah not to have chametz 7 days. This is who they were. You don't need a mitzvah. With Moshe and Aaron, what's a mitzvah? He says, today, he says, no chametz 7 days. Aval matzah, v'hinei nimtza. It was before Matan Torah, but it was Pesach. The mitzvahs of chametz and matzah were before Matan Torah. Well, these mitzvahs were given in Mitzrayim, yeah. The Seder, Korban Pesach, matzah, it's all Mitzrayim, yeah. HaChodesh Hazalachem, we just read Parshas HaChodesh. These are the mitzvahs before Matan Torah, yeah. Okay, continue tomorrow. Not because you came in, because the time is up. Lo hispik.
You could explain what it says to the midbars and
Makif mesame einei hachitzonim. That's an expression from the writings of Zohar and the Arizal. Makif is a type of light that encompasses. Makif literally means surrounds, like the clouds encompass the Jewish people. Whenever there's an Ohr Makif, which is a higher light that is infinite, it's not internalized. Makif means it's not internalized in my vessels and encompasses me. Mesame, it blinds the eyes of the external forces. Makif mesame einei hachitzonim. Whenever there's an Ohr Makif, it blinds the eyes of the external forces. Meaning an Ohr Pnimi, when the Ohr is limited, ultimately different creatures can nurture from it, including parasites. But an Ohr that's beyond, they have no access to it. You understand? From Bina, they have access because it's Yesh. But Chachma, they have no access to because it's Bittul. Chachma will never be distorted. Bittul is never, it's not distorted. It can't be manipulated. Why can't it be manipulated? Because it always remains connected to that place. People who are attached to Moich and the Abba, you could never manipulate them. And they'll never manipulate anybody else, of course. Because they're aligned with the place where the I is one with the source. The Herst.
You got it? You got it? You got it? Oh, you said it again.
Was? Welche Nekuda?
Alle Nekudas. Matzah ist ja Ohr Chaim.
Matzah is ja ochel eis Shivas Hayama. Lahachil is Shivas Hayama.
Pinkt verkehrt.
You have to feed the 7 days, huh?
Pinkt verkehrt von Narzisst.
Why? Narcissism?
Ja, verkehrt.
Was meinst du?
Du darfst machen, sagen, Shivas Hayam.
Yeah. Oh, matzahs ye'achal. You have to be meichel the shivas hayama. You have to give all the midas, the moichen, the Abba, the Abba, the taste of Abba. Punkt verkehrt von was?
Ja, nur es.
Yeah, everything is verkehrt. Everything here is verkehrt. 1 second, yeah?
When by Kodshim, the night follows the day.
No.
So we say that the first day there's Esher Chametz. And we're talking about the Dalit.
This is not kachim. The Isser Chametz,
Pesach wasn't Kodshim.
the Isser Chametz didn't have to do with kachim only. It was Noyeg Yom Echad. Yom Echad means the night of Pesach and the first day of Pesach, which is Tesvav Nissan. But the next night they can eat chametz. But because they didn't have a chance to bake chametz, it couldn't become chametz. They weren't commanded. Didn't have a chance. There was such a gilui, nigla aleim melech malchem lachem. It couldn't become chametz. They didn't have. You don't have to tell them. It can't become.
So the 14th by the afternoon, they were allowed to eat Chametz, technically.
Huh?
The 14th in the afternoon, that year, they were technically allowed to eat Chametz.
I think so. That's an interesting question. You want to know before the Seder?
Did they ever say they're in the Mitzrayim?
Yeah, they had a Seder Mitzrayim the first night. The night before they left, they had a Seder. Carbon Pesach with the blood on the door, of course.
Rabbi Mulkel says that they actually flew on the Finishorim to Eretz Yisrael to the Makom HaKodesh.
Yeah.
So it could have been that they ate Pesach in Yerushalayim, came back, and then they had to flee. So Taka they didn't have time to bake anything. They were in Yerushalayim.
I'm sorry, Eminut, yeah?
Says after 120 years, based on Shalmana, he asked a question. One of the question is, did you try to have children?
A sakta b'pirya v'rivya.
That doesn't apply to female.
It also says kavata itim l'tayra. Nasasa v'nasata be'emuna. No. They don't have to engage in business.
The question about children doesn't apply to female. It's natural.
Rabbi, did you help your husband?
Goats, when they reach puberty and they don't become pregnant, they become depressed, they will need unless they get pregnant.
How do you know? Yeah, you raised goats? Huh?
Until I got a violation.
How many goats? You raised goats. So you're saying when female goats reach puberty and they don't become pregnant, they get depressed. They won't eat. Interesting. What else don't they do? They just they're in a bad mood.
What do you do?
Huh? Really? Psst. It's interesting. Huh? He raised goats. So he says female goats, when they reach the age of puberty and they're not getting pregnant, they go into a depression. They'll stop eating, and their whole life they lose interest in life.
You got in the video, the Rebbe's car came back. You got in the video.
Das ist der Rebbe's car.
Yeah, this is what happens to goats, the female goats.
Very interesting. But this is a very deep word. L'chayre doesn't make sense. Who should be commanded on Pirya V'Rivya? What do we do already? Women are the ones that have Mesiras Nefesh for it. They don't get a mitzvah. We get the mitzvah. They don't get the mitzvah. It's a strange thing. It's our mitzvah. They're the ones who have to carry the baby, give birth to the baby, all the labor pains.
What's the above the mitzvah? If we have to be commanded because we are...
So that's the vart. The vart is not that they don't get that, they're not connected to the mitzvah. It's much deeper than a mitzvah. This is their etzem mitzias. This is who they are. This is who they are. They're very mitzias. You see, Rachel tells Yaakov, right? If without children, Mesa noichi, I'm dead. We have to be taught that there's a relationship. You got to have family. We got to be domesticated. Yeah, we got to be domesticated. kept home and taught that you have relationships. It's not simple. We like to, Meloif darum. You see it practically. I mean, with feminism, a lot of the boundaries have been blurred. But for thousands of years, you can't compare the connection between a mother and children to anybody else. It's just, today you're not allowed to say any of this, but truth is truth. Look at your wives. It doesn't mean every woman in the world. It doesn't mean every woman in the world, of course, especially there's women, there's mental challenges and there's stress and there's illness. Of course, we know that. Huh? We know. And then there's men who are unbelievable saints and angels and then mothers and so forth. But generally, biologically, and throughout all of there's a difference. Yeah, the woman carries the child. She has Mesiras Nefesh for the child. It's her very mitzias is connected to it.
All she is having kids.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. That I wouldn't say. No, I don't think that's a right thing to say.
They get depressed. That's true. Every woman.
When a woman doesn't have children, it affects them in a completely different way.
Biological time is ticking. They go crazy.
One of the mistakes, feminism had some good results, but one of its greatest mistakes was that it robbed millions of women from this appreciation of who they are naturally.
In the corporate world,
And it was a terrible mistake they did. It was an injustice done to women. Terrible crime done to women.
they didn't even know it happened.
They took away from them one of their greatest gifts of happiness, of simcha sachayim, of tainuk. And they get older. They're in the corporate world. They're judges and lawyers and real estate managers, and it's wonderful. Women, if they want to work, great, and make a lot of money and be very successful. But they took away from them an innate understanding that all their mothers and grandmothers had for thousands of years, even in the primitive world. And then they're 60, and they look around. I mean, I've heard from quite a few people. Huh?
Not just depressive, bitter.
Bitter. Very bitter, yeah.
Revenge. So what about those?
Very, very bitter. And sometimes they're not honest about it. So the bitterness is manifested in all types of ways that are really contrary to what they're bitter about. And it's very sad. It's very sad because they're really supposed to be mothers. There was a magazine called the Moment magazine. It was like Moment, yeah. It's a Jewish magazine, a little more. Yeah. So some liberal writers. So I saw once they interviewed a Satmar woman. And she's in her, nightgown, running in the kitchen, making her Kugel, whatever she was doing. So this interviewer came to her house and said, "Are you jealous? Are you jealous of other women? 8 o'clock in the morning, they leave the house with an attaché case. They're dressed up. 8 o'clock, they're out of the house. They put in a full day work. They're respected. They come home. They make a beautiful salary. And here you are with kids nonstop, doctors and headaches and viruses and school buses and the lives. Baruch Hashem, she had 14 kids. So she looks and she says, jealous? Jealous? You're crazy? Do you know that Friday night, around my table, there are 64 people, children and grandchildren, because, they're all married young, 64 people who worship me. She have 64 people who worship me. She says, jealous? I'm not jealous. She says, that woman doesn't have 64 people who worship her.
This problem got worse today with the whole gender identity.
Yeah. It's gewaldig. It's your calling. Your very system cries out for it. Huh? Being a nurturer, a giver. A woman is a nurturer. She's a giver. She's a mother.
And those who can't have.
Avada, there are those who can't have, and there are those who are infertile. It's not pashut. It's a tremendous nisayan, tremendous challenge. And sometimes people can't have, biologically, emotionally. I'm not answering the question now of tragedy. There's women who never had children. We know that. Huh?
Click into chesed sometimes, and it satisfies them to a certain extent.
It's a difficult challenge. It's a tremendous challenge. That's why you'll see women go on Mesiris Nefesh to have a child. Rachel told Yaakov, "Ve'im ayin meisa anochi." She called herself dead. Why would she say that? She was saying something. She called herself dead. Why do you say that to Yaakov? Yeah? Chana wanted a child. Her husband says, "Anochi toiv lach me'asara banim." I'm better than 10 children. You have me. She didn't buy it. She went to the Mishkan, to Shiloh, to Eli, yeah, and she davened, and he thought she was drunk, and she had a baby, Shmuel Hanavi. But it teaches you something about, now you're asking, there's people who don't, yeah. It's one of the great challenges, like many other challenges that people have.
Men naturally don't want. Men naturally don't want to commit.
Men naturally run away from commitment much more, yeah. They have to be trained, they have to be domesticated, they have to be, they need a mitzvah. They need a mitzvah. It's called a mitzvah. A mitzvah. So the Balatanya, this is the word. He says the first generation, they didn't need a mitzvah for 7 days, no chametz. Leihispik. Sind nicht ausgekommen. They were in the place, but there was already no chametz. Leihispik. They couldn't have a chance to become chametzdik. There was too much truth to become chametz. In our times, we don't have that level of truth manifested, so you have to say, don't eat chametz. Verstehst? Huh?
Said first man is a filled chaya, and then he needs to become a kosher animal, domesticated.
So the Heiben of art. The Heiben of art. In the first generation, leihispik. They didn't. With so much truth, we could you become chametz? Huh? You're in the presence of Moshe and Aaron. So chametz sich nicht. So chametz sich nicht. It's not. Today you have to say no chametz.
The Chitzonim didn't have any nourishment from...
Yeah, the Chitzonim represents the ego. The ego. The Chitzonius of the world. Chitzonim means the Chitzonius of the world. The outside, the superficiality of the world.
Like the Reb said before, that wanted his Talmidim to be so busy not to...
Yeah, that was a cute word.
Be nothing to be able to grab onto them.
The Kotzker Rebbe said, where do you have time to sin? Forget, where do you have time to sin? People speak about Lashon Hara. Where do you have time to speak Lashon Hara? Where do you have time? Where do you have time to sit for half an hour, speak Lashon Hara? Where do you get the time? I wish you can give me that half an hour. Where do people have time for it? There was once a rabbi, a big rabbi, so he said something against the Lubavitcher Rebbe, publicly. And then he realized he made a mistake. So he apologized to him. And he said that he hopes that the Rebbe didn't carry a kpeda on him. You know, a kpeda, like a grudge, and feel negative to him and some chas v'shalom. So the Rebbe said, "Gleibt mir, ich hab nicht kein Zeit, haben a kpeda auf nach Hayiden." I don't have time to carry grudges against people. Gleibt mir, ich hab nicht kein Zeit, haben a kpeda auf nach Hayiden. Was the Zeit of Pedes? So that's the word leihispik. They didn't have time. We didn't have time for chametz. Was the Zeit for chametz? Yeah, that he wouldn't say.
They're so broken that there's no ego.
You're right. Because they were slaves, you're saying they didn't have an ego. They didn't have an ego. But you're in the presence of Moshe, so you don't become chametz. That's his word. You're in the presence of Moshe and Aaron. It didn't let you become leihispik. You didn't have a chance to become chametz. When you're in the presence of Moshe and Aaron, in the clouds of Aaron, and in the presence of Moshe, they were chachma. So they empowered people. People saw themselves in that way.
They had 10 months of freedom also, right?
Huh?
They had 10 months of freedom, I think, now.
From Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara says that Rosh Hashanah batla avoda, yeah. From Rosh Hashanah.
You only have color came before and after. That was the cloud.
No, when they went into the Midbar. When they went into the Midbar, they had clouds. It says, Lo yamish amud ha'anan yoimam, right? The amud anan didn't leave them. And the pillar of fire at night, and there was a pillar of a cloud. That says in Chumash. And that's called the cloud of Arim. Then we also know that the cloud surrounded them from all sides. That doesn't say clearly.
The first night for Pesach, they had all this.
No, the night of Pesach they were in Egypt, but the day of Pesach they left. Be'etzem hayom hazeh, they left Egypt.
Then they already had the Ammonites.
Yeah, as they journeyed out. It says in Parshas B'Shalach that the cloud carried them, yeah. That cloud represents the cloud of Aaron, Chesed encompassing them, which is the first day of Pesach. The way Chacham is communicated in Chesed, and once it's communicated in Chesed, it already impacts all the other days, all the other 6 days. So you don't need a special mitzvah.
What did Aaron do so special in his time? He was,
Aaron. He was a lover of Israel. Oyev Shalom v'Roidev Shalom.
well, that's maybe after. You know, he was in his time. What was?
No, he said he wasn't jealous of Monsey.
He was a Navi. He was a.
He was not.
He was a good man. He was a good man. Ah?
Loved Hashem's children.
Yeah.
The Rosh Hashiva, right? Who ran the yeshiva?
Aaron probably. Aaron. Amram. The Rambam says Amram was a Gadol Ador. Thank you so much.
Yehuda was the administrator.
You mean initially when they came, Yehuda, yeah. But it says that Amram was the Gadol Hadar, I mean.
So Yehuda established this.
Yeah.
Aaron, he didn't know he was part of the old Matzah.
Right, right. Tumecha v'urecha le'ish chasidecha. It says about Aaron, Tumecha v'urecha le'ish chasidecha. The Tumim and the Urim goes to the Ish of Chasidecha. So the Zohar says that Koyanim, Aaron comes from Chesed, Ish Chasidecha. That's the connection of Aaron to Chesed.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.